I have to tell you, there's nothing better on a Sunday than like freshly baked goods coming out of the oven and a fully clean household. But with that, it is time for the video of the day. And the video of the day is actually a Reddit post. I saw this last week while I was just kind of like scrolling through my Reddit page, and we're going to talk all about walking. So we have some before and after shots, and at the top it says, walking is the cheat code. So underrated. I hate the gym. Y'all, I can't believe I didn't know about walking. I would always try to do some crazy gym workout in order to tone, but who knew I could just hit 10,000 steps and achieve the same results? Let's discuss. First and foremost, I think it goes without saying, but walking is an incredible way to move your body. It's simple for most people. It's very accessible. So good for her for committing to 10,000 steps a day. That's actually really difficult for the majority of people who don't live in a city and work at a desk. I'm not saying that like that's what she does, but I would say that's most of the population in the US. And obviously walking worked for her to get to this aesthetic outcome. It seemed like that was her goal, which I think is fantastic. But I think when we're looking at the broader picture of health, it is just one piece of a larger puzzle. But I guess you can also say like this post is not about health, so that's fair. But let's zoom out. Let's look at a few different lenses. Let's start looking under the aesthetic lens because it does seem like that was this person's goal. Increased steps equals increased energy expenditure. If you are increasing your energy expenditure, you're more likely to put yourself into a calorie deficit. All that means is that you are expending more energy than you're taking in. And that tip of the scales in terms of energy expenditure and energy intake will lead to fat loss. She also talked about doing like crazy workouts in the gym to tone. And yeah, I would actually agree that like most toning workouts or workouts that are marketed as toning, which are typically body weight, little pulsing movements, stuff that doesn't really like move the needle forward in terms of loading and joint range of motion. Those things are not the most effective way to get to this specific aesthetic adaptation, which is it's fat loss. Now, if you have a goal of fat loss, whether from a health perspective or an aesthetic perspective, here's what I would recommend. Walk more, eat in a deficit, and strength train. Let's go through each one. So we already kind of discussed this, but walking more is simply just going to increase your energy out. Now, just to sprinkle in a little bit of the health benefits here too, we're going to put that lens back into frame. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, and I know I've already referenced this, but I didn't like formally reference this. There was a huge meta-analysis done, which is basically compiling like a lot of different studies and drawing conclusions from all of them together. But this meta-analysis basically showed that the sweet spot of steps per day for most people is going to be about 7,000 to 8,000, and that is to help prevent chronic illness, things like heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, because many of those things are also affected by our lifestyle choices. Now, what that meta-analysis also showed was that 10,000 or more steps a day actually didn't like move the needle forward much more in terms of preventing chronic illness. But if we're also looking at this from just a fat loss perspective, walking more is more energy out, so you are more likely to have a fat loss goal result from that. That was like almost English, right? All right, so the next part of this is your nutrition. Specifically, you want to eat in a deficit. I have a lot of videos that talk all about how to calculate your maintenance calories, how to estimate what your deficit should be. With this, we do have to remember that not only does your metabolism not stay constant day to day, but all of these calculators are really just estimates. So unless you're going to a facility where you're like breathing into the mask and they give you your exact BMR, which again can also just change day to day, you're really going to be playing a guessing game, and it's going to take a little bit of trial and error to figure out what your maintenance and then deficit is. But the reason why I think that if you have a fat loss goal, nutrition is going to be key is because it's going to be the most controlled variable. Now, when you're going into a deficit, you really want to make sure that you're prioritizing protein and fiber. They're going to be your best friends. The reason for that is because they take longer to digest and break down in your system. Therefore, they're going to help keep you fuller longer. There's also like 1,000 other benefits to eating protein and fiber. But again, we're looking at this from a fat loss lens. If we want to also bring in the health lens, protein is going to help support your muscle mass. Fiber is really going to be great for your digestion as long as you're drinking enough water. And there's a huge link between fiber intake and things like colon cancer, which is on the rise in younger individuals. So we got the aesthetic lens, we got the health lens. The last point here, and this is where I think a lot of people drop the ball, is strength training. I get questions all the time. Should I even bother strength training when I'm in a deficit? Yes. When you're in a deficit, your body's going to lose all mass, fat mass and lean mass. Muscle mass is lean mass, and we want to prioritize fat loss, not muscle loss. If we're looking at this from an aesthetic perspective, that toned look that a lot of people want is actually just having a low enough body fat percentage to see the muscle mass underneath. So it helps support that aesthetic look that you're looking for. On the health perspective, having enough muscle mass is going to preserve your independence. It's going to decrease aches and pains daily. It's going to help support your hormones hormonal health. And then even though this is not like as big of a difference that a lot of people like to claim, if you do have more muscle mass on your body, it is going to increase your basal metabolic rate or just like give you a faster metabolism. Again, it's not going to be like a huge difference, but muscle does take more energy to preserve than fat mass. So essentially you're just like using more calories at rest. So what were the three things again that we talked about? Walking more, eating in a deficit, prioritizing strength training. We have to remember that like this stuff is really not that complicated. What is complicated is how to implement these things in our daily lives. The way that societies have developed do not necessarily prioritize walkable areas, does not necessarily prioritize affordable and accessible quality nutritious food. And the fitness industry right now is riddled with misinformation around strength training, especially strength training for women. So overall, we are gonna put this in like merry meh. Like it's fine. I think the pro here is showing people that like it can be that simple. Just you can walk more and increase your energy out. But the negative is that I think it still like dissuades people from actually going to the gym. So it doesn't really paint the full picture of what people should be doing for a fat loss aesthetic goal or a fat loss health goal. So with that, it's about 1:30. Kevin's currently out at his workout. He did the meal prep this week. I did the cleaning. I'm going to surprise him and put up the tree before he gets back. So we got to do that quickly. And then one of his jobs is vacuuming because this rug is gross. So let's put up the tree. I don't know if we're going to have time to decorate it today because he has a few shows tonight, but we're at least going to get the tree up and ready to be decorated later this week. Christmas!